Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jim and Anna from Live with Jim and Anna. We're excited to be here today for our little hangout. Hope everyone is doing well. And so, Jim, where are you these days?
Well, I'm actually in the kitchen of a nice young couple here in Burlingame, California, who are putting me up for a couple of nights while I get to visit with some clients and give a speech.
Okay.
And it's really a nice apartment. So I can't give everybody a tour, but you can see the poster behind me. It's really beautiful.
Well, please don't give away their address.
No, speaking of beautiful, look at that design behind your head on the wall of our office. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we get to the questions?
I can. Actually, this might be a little infomercial for my friend, Elvira Dial. So when I got an opportunity earlier, a couple months ago, to move to a bigger office in the same building, I called a friend and I told her that I was interested in painting the walls because the walls were just like boring white color or something like that. And she says, "Well, I'll give you suggestions." And I thought it was just going to be, a one color or something. I wanted something bright. And she says, "Well, if you want my suggestions, you have to go with my design." And I was like, "Well, okay, I can't say no at this point." And so she used the colors from our brand, which is the logo that we designed and the website. So the design behind me is really imagination that she had in her head, but she painted the walls in the office all these different colors. So it doesn't mean it's just a little picture, and actually it kind of represents sort of like the stock market sort of trend going up, but I don't want to think of it that way.
Up or down? Actually, what it reminds me of is the bunch of intersecting roads in outside of Lucerne, Switzerland, where I was earlier this year. They had the cute little lakes and stuff like that. And if I was looking on a map, that might be like the roads that we're intersecting in. So I don't know.
Yes,
that's
but
my
anyway,
take on it.
But her thought was that's how she sees people. When people come see us, their lives are just improving. So everything starts going up. That was her imagination. So
okay, so let's
the colors. Okay, let's
get to some questions because I don't want you to be avoiding the issue. So can I ask you your first question?
Sure, you can.
Okay. So this one has to do with Roth IRAs. It says, "Hi, Anna. I've been working with Jim, but I don't know exactly who should respond to my first Friday question. This is the first time that I've participated. This year, I had to withdraw money from my Roth IRA. I'm 61, and I've had the account for over 5 years. My question is, can I still contribute to a Roth IRA? Thank you." So, what did you tell her?
Yes, this is a good question. I think she's combining two things here, but I'm going to answer the actual question, whether she can contribute to the Roth IRA. So yes, the answer is yes, but there's a couple of things you have to meet. So there's two requirements. Number one, you have to have earned income. So that means you have to have income from working, such as salary or if you're getting an hourly wage. Number two, this income that you're receiving, or actually more precise, adjusted gross income, cannot exceed the maximum allowable by the federal government in 2014. There's a special number that they come up every year, which precludes you from contributing to a Roth. So it also depends on your filing status. And so here are the examples of the filing status and income limitation. So for a single person, it's $114,000 or less, and for married couple filing jointly, it's $181,000 or less. So if you stay within those brackets, then you can definitely contribute up to $5,500 if you are under age 50, and if you are over age 50, you can contribute an additional $1,000. And if you happen, for example, not to work, but you have a spouse who does, so it comes back to filing your tax return jointly, then you could use the income that your spouse has and still be able to contribute to a Roth IRA. Nice. That's all I have.
Well, that's very succinct, though, and I hope the lady in our audience would appreciate your responding to that question. Roth IRAs are kind of funny things, but they sure avoid a lot of taxes. So I think both you and I feel that people should contribute, if at all possible, to Roth IRAs.
I certainly agree. However, there is also a time constraint, meaning it's probably better off if you started doing this a long time ago so that you can benefit from the time, meaning you can accumulate a lot more dollars tax-free. But
Right.
in general, that is a good idea. So I agree.
Cool.
Okay, let's move on to your question. So here's the question
Yes.
that came in for you, Jim.
Okay.
Single. Modest means, do I need long-term care insurance? I'm 58 now.
Well, 58 is pretty young, as far as I'm concerned, Anna.
58
But,
is the new 48.
exactly. And I was glad to see this question because I had just read a new study out this month from a very prestigious, the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College, and it summarized the latest studies on who needs long-term care and for how long, basically nursing home care. And when I was selling long-term care insurance as a life insurance agent in the early 90s, we were using information that had been developed in the 80s that said there was a 1 in 3 chance that somebody would go to the nursing home, and if they did, that men wouldn't stay very long, maybe less than 6 months, but women would stay 4 years. And so that's the information that I've always given to other people when they were considering long-term care insurance. Well, that's not true anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The latest studies, and there's 2 different studies that this research paper we're quoting, the odds of needing nursing home care are 44% for men. Both studies came up with that number, and 58% for women. And it's really a function 30 years later that we're living longer. So people were underestimating, including me, the need for care. But here's the interesting component. The length of stay was much shorter than previous thought. And that was true especially for women. The studies confirmed that men stayed an average of 8/10 of 1 year, and women stayed for 1 1/3 years. And the studies proved out that many people who go to the nursing home don't go there forever and die, that many of them go back home again and have a different kind of care in a home setting, community setting is what we call it. And so that's a really good trend to hear about. But answering the question, do you need long-term care insurance? We just have to give people the odds of that. They have to look around for family members that could care for them or they could live with and make their own decision. But usually I encourage people to purchase insurance before age 60 when premiums tend to get out of the reach of most people's budget. So that's how I answered that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But also maybe this client who is asking the question, maybe she should consider thinking about what other resources she has, because I think you would agree that long-term care is just one way to pay. Long-term care insurance is just one way to pay for the long-term care expense. So there might be savings, there might be a house that could potentially act as a long-term care insurance. Also, Social Security income, pension income, all of that just has to be thought as a way to pay for it. So
exactly, and this lady writing in was a renter, so she didn't really have house equity that could support long-term care needs. So she had some savings, and depending upon when she needed it and what the status of her savings were, she probably would fit in the category of, if she had a lengthy stay in a nursing home, she would be dependent on the Medicaid program.
Right.
Medicare doesn't cover much of long-term care needs. 60 days with a partial coverage for another 30 if someone is determined to be in rehab. If it's just custodial care, Medicare declines to pay, but the government doesn't leave indigent people out on the street. The government pays for long-term care if someone doesn't have the resources.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. So, again, long-term care insurance is not the only solution. So, but
that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. I'm ready for my question number 2.
You are? Well, let's go get it then.
Okay.
So, by the way, I noticed that you always answer every question by saying it's a great question. So I want to know if this is a great question too. Okay. It says,
Okay.
Jim and Anna, my wife inherited IRAs from her mother last year after she passed away, and the estate was a 2013 distribution. This year, as I recall, she has to take a distribution out of the remaining monies. Is there a calculator to figure out how much that is? And what are the rules in deciding which of the 3 separate IRAs to tap?
Okay. I'm not going to say it's a great question. I'm going to say it's a loaded question. There's a couple of parts.
Okay, good.
There's a couple of parts to it. So the part number 1, as far as how to figure out a method by which you can a method by which you can start taking out these distributions. So the first thing to do is to note whether the account holder from whom you inherited this IRA was under 70.5 or over 70.5, because it has to do her mother.
Her mother. Okay.
So it has to do with the fact if the mother was taking out distributions from this account or not. So let's say that the mother was under 70.5. So if that's the case, then there's 3 ways of how to tap into that account. So number 1, it's called life expectancy method. So it just means that you can roll over this IRA into your own name, and then start taking distributions over your own life expectancy. Okay, so that's number 1. I'll go into details of how to calculate that in just a bit. Method number 2 is called 5-year method. You do the same thing, you transfer the IRA into your own name, but by the end of year 5, you must withdraw all the money from this account. Okay? And then method number 3 is lump sum distribution. So you just take all of the monies available in that IRA right away. The number 3, lump sum distribution, we've seen some clients do when the account is just a teeny balance. Just makes sense not to stretch it out every year, and just something you don't have to worry. Now, if the account holder was over 70.5, and I think this is the case for this particular client, then there's 2 ways. Life expectancy method applies again. You'll transfer the IRA into your own name, and then you'll stretch out the distributions over your own life expectancy. And you can do lump sum distribution as well if you wanted to if you needed funds for some project and wanted to pay taxes right away, and that might be an option. Now, I want to comment on the life expectancy method. There are calculators out there, actually. If you just Google, you'll come up with a load of options to use. Bankrate had one, Schwab website had one, so I saw a couple that were actually pretty easy to use. But if you wanted just to do calculations by hand, IRS publishes these life expectancy tables. So what you do is you go to the table, you look at the age that you're in, and there's something called life expectancy factor. So you use this particular number, you take that number and you multiply that number by the balances of your IRAs December 31 of last year, and that's how you figure out how much you need to take out from that account.
Question, Anna?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be easier if you divided by that factor rather than multiplied by the factor? Because as I recall, 27 is the first year at 70.5, and if you multiplied 27 by, say, $100,000, you'd come up with
27.
Yeah, 2.7 million. I think you divide the 100,000 by the factor 27 into 100, and that gives you about 3.6%.
Okay,
I just wanted to point that out. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Sorry, I may have misspoke.
Oh no, I'm helping. I'm here to help you.
Okay, and maybe using a calculator, one of these online calculators would be a good idea to double check your calculations.
Exactly.
And the second part of the question was, whether there was a particular rule to decide from which of the 3 or 4 or whatever number of IRAs you have to take these distributions from. I think this really depends on how these accounts are invested. So that would be something that we can discuss in a little bit more details with you, but I don't have a particular suggestion, so I'd rather not go into details of that.
Okay.
Okay.
You got a final question for me?
I got a final question for you, so I'm just pulling it out here.
Oh, good.
And here we go. Hey, Uncle Jim, one of my nephews writes, can you explain to me disability insurance?
Wow. Well, it's good that Uncle Jim has a lot of nephews, so
Yeah.
we're not labeling any one particular one. But, you know, there are 2 kinds of disability needs and policies. That's what I told them. First is short-term disability, and usually the benefits begin a week or so after you've suffered some sort of temporary job loss, which is a loss of income, either by accident or by illness. And usually the benefits last probably 90 days or a little bit less. And the vast majority of short-term disability policies are paid for by employers as part of group benefits. Most individuals that work for a company of any size have short-term disability benefits. Usually it goes along with their health and dental and vision packages. Now, individuals without employer group coverage, you can certainly apply for an individual policy. You have to answer medical condition questions, but it's not too expensive because it's only a limited amount of time of job loss income that the insurance company is covering. Now, long-term disability, as its name implies, usually starts to pay benefits after some lengthy waiting period. Sometimes it's 90 days, sometimes it's 180 days. But the theory is the individual can handle the short-term loss of income due to illness or injury, and they usually cover that with their emergency savings. But if they're going to suffer a long-term loss of their job and their earning power, then no matter if it's accident or illness, then they need to use insurance where you move the risk to an insurance company and you do it with a bunch of other people so you don't have to pay too much. The policies for long-term disability are group. A lot of employers offer it, and usually the employee pays. And one of the things that we always remind people of, if you pay with after-tax dollars and you have to get the benefits are tax-free. If you pay with pre-tax dollars, trying to save payroll taxes, then the benefits are taxable to you. In group coverage, where the employer's paying, the benefits are taxable to you. Sometimes, though, people get a secondary individual plan, or because their employer doesn't offer long-term disability, they get a primary policy. And how much it's going to cost is the question we are most frequently asked. We don't have a fixed answer for that, but just think of this. If you were a 30-year-old male, sort of like my nephew, and you were permanently disabled and your job loss and benefit were about $3,000 a month tax-free because you bought an individual policy, and think about this. The insurance company risk is $3,000 times 12 months times 35 years, and it comes up with a not adjusted for inflation figure of $1 million for a benefit that would cover to age 65. Now, the odds are really small that someone is going to, experience that long of a loss of a job due to illness or injury, but it does happen, and so that's why the premiums are probably higher than most people would like to pay. It's not unusual for people to be paying $75 to maybe $150 a month for a fair amount of coverage just because there's much risk for the insurance company. So my final word to nephew was, stay healthy and avoid hang gliding. That's what Uncle Jim said.
But do consider disability insurance.
Yes.
You can't rely on just being healthy. Come on. You know what I usually tell clients? I use this analogy. So think of this. So if you had an ATM machine sitting in your garage and it would spit out cash every month, for you to live on. You probably would want to insure that ATM in case somebody broke into your garage or something happened to it. So think of yourself as that ATM machine that you might want to insure because you have the ability to earn that cash to pay for your lifestyle.
What a great story. I am glad you used that story, Anna.
I do, especially with my younger clients. They laugh at it. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I'm looking at the old clock on the wall here in the beautiful apartment in Burlingame, and it looks like our time is just about up. Do you have any final words you'd like to leave?
No. Everyone have a great weekend. The time is out, and we'll be back again next month to answer more questions.
And don't forget, during our live presentation, that we have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner where you can write in questions too. So, do you see any questions written in there
There's
today?
No questions that came in during our discussion. So.
Okay. Well, next month they'll have another opportunity, especially for follow-up questions. We're always happy to do that. Okay?
Exactly. Wonderful. Great chatting with you, Jim.
Same here. Love hanging out with you, Anna. And have a nice weekend, everybody.
Take care. Bye.